Hello and welcome to Coastal Map Work Revision with Mr. Mercer. Now, coastal map work is fairly easy map work because you're going to be contained to one area of the map. In other words, wherever the sea meets the land. Saying that though, it's relatively tricky to revise because there's not really one area of coastline that contains all of the features. However, we will do our best. In this map tour, if you like, we're going to travel along the coastline from Weymouth, as you can see on your screen there, all the way along the coastline to Swanage, and then north to Bournemouth. Okay, so moving the map back to the starting place. For starters, if we zoom in a touch here, map work's fairly easy if you go for the obvious points. No pun intended, as here we start off with Red Cliff Point. This, you could argue, is a headland. It's jutting out into the sea and it's called Point. Moving along the coastline, we see another easy feature, Ringstead Bay. It's a feature of coastal erosion, and it's called a bay. Moving our eye further along the coastline, though there have been other examples up until this point, here is another bay, as you can see there. Here are some rock outcrops lying out to sea. You could argue that they could be stacks or stumps. Moving our eye along again, here's another bay. This time, though, we would not be repeating ourselves as we can give further information. The shape of this bay tells us it is a Concordant Bay, the pincer shape at the front indicating where the initial hard rock layer has been breached. Moving along further, there are better examples of stacks or stumps. And the first of our very clear examples of cliff formations along the coastline. Here are more cliffs. Again, moving along, more cliffs to talk about. Warbarrow Bay, another bay. Here you can see a rock formation sticking out into the sea. This would be a good opportunity for you to try and win a point calling it a headland. Moving further along, we see Brandy Bay. More cliffs. Here at Hoborough Bay, it's worth pointing out that not only are there cliffs on the landward side of the coastline being the solid black line that my mouse icon is tracing, but also we see rock outcrop symbols on the seaward side of that line. Where you see that, you can talk about a rock-cut platform. And indeed here you can see Broad Bench. You can maybe imagine why it's been given that name. It's a flat platform of rock sitting at the bottom of the cliff. Moving on, here we see another bay, Kimmeridge Bay this time. In the exam you can use grid references or directly name these features. Maybe for extra credit you could try comparing two bays, pointing out that there's Brandy Bay at grid reference X, Y, or Z, and then a wider, larger bay at Kimmeridge Bay, surrounded by cliffs and with wave-cut platforms. Try and add some description to the features that you're finding. Moving along, we see more wave-cut platforms, more cliffs, and if, like I'm finding here, you find yourself kind of drying up of features, you're finding that you're repeating yourself, don't panic, have patience. As you move your eye along the coastline, oh look, there, you find something. There's a cave. A cave is a feature that is eroded by the sea and therefore is a feature of coastal erosion. Here is another cave. You can see that because it says cave. Here you can see a tiny circular icon. Now, in actual fact, that is a cave, I believe, and if I zoom in to a different scale, yes, I'm right, that is a cave. However, in the exam, you wouldn't have two scales of map, and in this instance, where that circle there, which indicates a hole in the rock, has not been labelled cave, you could argue that it is a blowhole. And I would suggest that you might get credit for that. Moving along, we've got another headland sticking out into the sea here, perhaps a less obvious example. However, when you see the bay that it's attached to, it becomes much more obvious. And if I zoom out for a section here, you can see very clearly that Durlston Bay is a discordant bay. Being able to name the type of bay is a nice piece of map work and will strengthen your answer. Here's another headland, and zooming back in to have a closer look at it, we can then see Swanage Bay, a massive discordant bay, leading to a huge headland and a stack and a stump sticking out into the sea. Again, I'll zoom out so you can see that feature in a little bit more detail. Moving it along, it's now worth our while looking for some depositional features. Now, depositional features can be tricky to find, but again, mainly because people try to overthink the problem. For starters, I'm going to change to a different scale here. Here, you can see these small circular shapes in amongst the sand. That's shingle and is a deposited feature of coastlines. Here, you can see sand forming a beach along the coastline. Again, another deposited feature formed by longshore drift. As we move north along this coastline, we start to see a very large sandy feature forming, and I'm going to zoom back out to a different map scale so we can see that in its entirety. Here you can see, again, coming out further, a large sandy formation sticking right out into the sea. It's generally hooked in shape and, crucially, is passing across the mouth of a river making its way out to sea. Using that evidence, what you're looking at here is a spit, the hooked end being caused by changes in wind direction. And you could gain marks for calling it a spit. You could also gain marks for referring to the marshland and mudflats trapped behind the spit. And if we look a little closer, you can see that there is even a lagoon trapped behind this. Okay, one last point. Here, where you see this deposited feature, which I don't believe is a tombolo, and I'm not going to call a spit, but nonetheless this has been deposited. You could suggest that where this deposited feature, were it to join up with the spit, you would have a sandbar. And that would be good map evidence too. That would be good map work. You're telling the examiner that you're trying to say what will happen in the environment should geographical processes continue into the future. Okay, so that's depositional features kind of touched on, and most of the erosional features dealt with. As I say, it's difficult to get all of the features into one area of map work, but this has been a general guide to doing coastal map work. Just remember to put your grid references in, and really coastal map work shouldn't slow you down at all. You're just casting your eye along that join between the sea and the land and finding the features as you go. So relatively straightforward stuff. Any problems, of course, come and find me. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.